Good morning, everybody. It's Tuesday. Phoebe mug. That is what they're called already in my household. The Phoebe mugs. I don't know if you can see, but I have put the rest of them up there. I've got the flashlight because I can't really, the lighting is not good enough to see all of that. And I tried doing that, but it doesn't work very well. The red teapot on the end was a happy accident. Worked out pretty well. My plan is to cycle through the rainbow, which means that the red teapot at the end will only work when they're, in this particular order, but I think it will be fine. So yes, thank you for the mugs, Phoebe. I appreciate them very much. And I was super excited to get them. You should have seen me. So I have a page of notes here. We will see how that goes. Phoebe, I really enjoyed listening to your 10-year thoughts there. I personally don't really have any good 10-year projections. I think it would probably not be a very fun thing if I talked about my ideas for where I will probably be in 10 years. So I'm maybe just going to kind of skip past that. I do hope though that we are all still friends in 10 years, which would be great because that would mean we were celebrating our 20th anniversary, which would be kind of amazing, I think. And so I definitely hope that that's a thing. Let me see what else. So we have a lot of talk about cameras versus phones, and about the childhoods of people our age. When I say our age, we're all the same age, but people of sort of our general group, sort of the pre-smartphone era, and kids now, how different they're going to be, which is going to be quite different. One of the things when I was a kid, sort of before digital cameras really became a thing, was that film cameras are not only like Phoebe, you talked about how it's more, before everybody had a phone camera and just had it in their pocket all the time, it required more effort to get out a camera, more effort to deal with it, to take a picture, and all of that kind of stuff. Also, the other thing was that pre-digital cameras, you had film cameras, which were, much more expensive, not only to buy the film to put in them, but also to have the film developed afterwards. I had just a really cheap, tiny point and shoot when I was a teenager, and I hardly ever took any pictures with it because you had to buy film for it, and then you had to have them developed. Even when I had actually taken a roll of film, I hardly ever ended up having them developed. Not only because you had to pay to have them developed, which you don't have to do with a digital camera, but also because you had to go somewhere to have them developed, and I live in the middle of nowhere, so you would have to take them somewhere to have them developed. That means you had to have access to somewhere that developed photos, which you may or may not have depending on where you live. So yeah, so it was just a lot more difficult. It was just a lot more effort and everything, a lot more resources. Plus you had to if you didn't have a little, crappy point and shoot like I had, you had to actually know how to use a camera, which I still don't know how to use an actual sorry, cat. Squirrel. What do you want? What? Why are you staring at me? Why are you guys like this? Nancy, why don't you just come over here and behave yourself? It's fine. So I don't know, I got distracted now. Anyway, I think I was at the end of what I was saying, basically. Yeah, I can't imagine what it must be like for kids now, where everything is just documented all the time. You know, everybody's taking pictures and taking videos and like, you know, posting stuff on their social media. Like, you know, I can't imagine like growing up like that. Nobody ever took pictures of me. I had mostly like, there are some pictures of when I was really, really small. And then there are like school pictures, and then like just a handful of sort of scattered pictures throughout like my teenage years, which were often, you know, like you were talking about, Mello, like where somebody else took the picture and just gave your parents a copy of it. And yeah, that's about it. So the other big thing that we talked about was journals. And I am still very, very much into this. Like anything that you guys wish to talk about or show or whatever, I am there for. I like journals. I like notebooks. I don't have like a lot of blank, like actual blank journals, like the bound journals. I don't have a lot of those. Partly because like when I actually did use those to write in, was a while ago, and like that, it was like that was before like Amazon or online shopping was really a thing. So like you could only buy them like in bookstores, and there were not a lot of those around here. So there were not a lot of places where I could get something like that, and also they were like kind of expensive. So I only had, you know, I only ever had like one or two of those like saved up at a time. And then eventually, because they were difficult to get a hold of, for a while, I made my own blank journals. But that was just too much effort. Although it was fun, like it was kind of fun to do. But like it, you know, it required a certain amount of effort to manage. And then also like you just had to have the stuff to do it with. And I rarely had like good cover materials, or, you know, I just had like cheap printer paper for pages and like that kind of stuff. So it just became not really that feasible. So eventually I just like ended up using like spiral bound notebooks and stuff. And I do actually have like kind of a stash of those still. I preferred the thicker ones, like 3 or 5 subject notebooks, because otherwise I would go through them really quickly if they were just like a single subject notebook. I have like a bunch of those actually that I will probably not end up using now, because I hardly ever write anything longhand anymore because of my hands. But yeah, I think it's just something that you do if you are a person who uses notebooks. You just like collect them all, and you just keep collecting them all. And then, because like everybody I know that keeps a journal or any kind of like a bullet journal or notebook of any sort has, you know, like a huge stash of blank notebooks. And then you have to deal with like the issue of like, you know, marking it for the first time, which is terrible. Especially if you have one that you think is really special, really pretty, or something like that. You know, you end up just holding on to it forever and hoarding it and never using it because you don't want to mess it up. It's the worst. I had a thought there, and I just like I was talking about something else, and I lost my tangent thought that I was going to come back to. Now I don't know what I was going to say. Upsetting. Let me think. It was, as you say, a very strange coincidence to run into Leo in the chat. I mean, we didn't really have like very much of a talk. We just sort of said hi, happy anniversary, like how's it going? And that was pretty much it. We kind of said hello and goodbye to each other. Because I was busy moderating, and I was like, you know, busy trying to keep track of all the other billion people that were talking in the chat. But yeah, it was a really strange coincidence. It was like, what is happening? I remember like seeing him scrolling by and just being like, wait a minute, like having to like scroll back and look and be like, oh my God, it absolutely is Leo. Wow. P4A did do extremely well. We raised the highest amount of money that we've ever raised. We beat our previous high water mark by over $100,000, like well over $100,000, like 100 and I don't know, I think the last one I saw was like $116,000 or something like that. I don't really remember. That was like a week ago. And but yeah, like I mean, we beat it by like a lot. So that was really impressive, especially since everybody was not expecting to do well this year. So that was really exciting, and it was really fun. I agree with Phoebe that the like Oliver editing in the old clips from the previous dance video was absolutely genius and not something that I probably would have thought to do myself. So good job, Oliver, because like that was really smart and made a really nice like kind of bookend kind of thing, although not really a bookend because hopefully is not the end of anything, but you know, nice sort of bookending of the 10 years. The owl sads are certainly a thing, although I did notice like right before I sat down to do this that like I have these pajamas that I am wearing that are owl pajamas. They're little pink and white ones. They're very cute. And also I have my owl onesie that my mom got me for Christmas like 2 or 3 years ago, 4 years ago, I don't know, whenever it was. I still have that. It's in my closet. A mint green owl onesie. Yeah. Sad owls, that's no good. What else? What else? I didn't go in order on my notes. I skipped around, so now I'm having to look at them and like figure out which things I have talked about already and which things I have not. Phoebe, you talked about your poetry thing. I've never taken a like a writing class that was focused on poetry. I've never taken a writing class really, other than like the like creative writing exercises they would make us do in high school, which was. I've never taken like an actual like writing class, but I took a lit class when I was in college, and each semester was a different thing. Like one semester was short fiction, one semester was poetry, and one semester was drama. And so the second semester was poetry, and that's the only class I've ever like taken that was really focused on poetry. Like up to that point, I had had very little to do with poetry. Like, you know, in like a school setting, honestly, not that much to do with poetry outside of the school setting either. But like when we talked about it, like in classes in high school or whatever, it was just like, you know, usually like one poem kind of in isolation without really like a lot of discussion about it or whatever. It would just be something that was in our textbook and we would read it and talk about it for, you know, have like 5 questions that had to be checked off or whatever, and then that would be it. So taking an entire semester that was just talking about poetry and reading poetry was really, really interesting, and I really, really enjoyed it. I'm sure that we talked about meter. I know that we must have. A lot of my memories from college are kind of messed up because I was really sick during that period. So I don't remember a lot of like specific stuff from classes, but I remember that I really, really, really enjoyed the class. But my whole lit sequence was really good. I really enjoyed the entire thing, and learned a lot from it. So I really liked my poetry class. It was really fun. When you're talking about meter and how pleasing it is and stuff, I can remember that like the first thing I ever really felt that way about, I think was probably I was in high school. I was probably like, I don't know, 14 or 15, and there were like a handful of poems that I sort of discovered. I don't even really remember how now. I got interested in Edgar Allan Poe precisely for that reason, not so much because of Poe himself or anything, but because like The Raven, for instance, has a very you know, has a great meter, and also like the the rhyme scheme and the general like assonance of the way that the poems sound is really like really satisfying and really pleasing. And so I like that sort of teal color. I tried to do it with a flashlight, but that's not really good. This sort of teal one right here is a Poe book. And I had another little tiny thin one that was just poetry. And I really enjoyed those a lot. And some other stuff, like there were a couple of like things from Shakespeare that I found that I really liked and things like that. Like there were just a few, like we didn't talk about poetry at all in school, really. So a lot of the stuff that I came across was just stuff that I randomly came across by myself in my own random reading. So like, I don't have a lot of like background and things like that. It was just like, I would pick up one thing here that I really liked and one thing over here that I really liked. And I didn't have any like anywhere to go for more stuff because this was before the internet and my library was not a place you could really like go to get things. So yeah, I understand what you mean about like how just pleasing it is, because I felt like that too. So yeah, I am now over 16 minutes. I should probably stop talking. I love you all very much, and I hope that you are having a good week. And I will see you next week. Cats are yelling at me. So yeah, so I'm done. Okay. I love you very much. I will see you next week. Don't forget to be awesome.